Teach us how to walk with you during every moment of our lives. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Martha, would you please call roll?
Yes, Appletoft.
Here.
Gibbs.
Here.
Inman.
Here.
Crane.
Here.
Quinn.
Here.
Rothrock.
Here.
Schlossmacher.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tonight, under appointments, we are pleased to put forward the recommendation of Tom Geraghty as Councilmember, Ward 1. Tom was selected to a committee, the interviewers, Councilmember Kramer and Quinn, City Administrator Laura Smith, and myself, and we wholly recommend his appointment. And I would like, if the council has his, some of the things Tom's done, I won't mention the bad things, just the good things, Tom. Tom retired about 1 year ago. He has been a plastic and reconstructive surgeon since 1978. He's chairman of the Medical Aid for Children of Latin America. It's a charitable organization I believe Tom started some 30 years ago. Tom went to St. Pius Grade School here in Mission and Bishop Gage High School, and then he had a few other years of schooling in there. So we're very honored to have you, Tom, and you will fit in great with this wonderful council. Good bunch of people, and we're pleased to have you. And I would recommend his appointment.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to move that the City Council uphold the appointment of Tom Geraghty as council member for Ward 1 and to fill the current vacancy.
Second.
Please call roll.
Quinn.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Gibbs.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Appletoft.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Well, Tom, come on up, and Martha will administer the oath.
Would you stand right there and just raise your right hand? I do solemnly swear and affirm
I do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
of the United States and the Constitution of Kansas
and the laws and ordinances of the City of Mission,
and the laws and ordinances of the City of Mission,
and faithfully discharge my duties as council member
and faithfully discharge my duties as councilman
of the City of Mission,
of the
Kansas.
City of Mission, Kansas.
Congratulations.
All right.
Congratulations, Tom. And Tom's wife, Judy, is in the audience. Could you stand, Judy, just so everybody knows? Yeah. And there is going to be a reception immediately after the meeting, so anyone who wants to stay. Tonight we have several special presentations, and first we'd like to thank Dick Kramer, longtime principal of Shawnee Mission North. He's made a real difference in this community by his example to all our North students. So I have a proclamation I'm going to read in honor of Dick. Whereas Richard Dick Kramer has been a vital member of our mission community for the past 9 years, serving as principal of Shawnee Mission North High School. And whereas Dick has touched the lives of all who have passed through North's doors during his tenure as principal, guiding the students to reach their highest potential and leading them into adulthood by setting an example of hard work, discipline, kindness, and caring. And whereas Dick has worked tirelessly to enhance the programs and activities offered at Shawnee Mission North so that each student has the opportunity to pursue not only their academic career, but also their talents and interest in drama and the arts, sports, ROTC, and a variety of other important activities. And whereas during his tenure as principal, Shawnee Mission North has become one of the only handful of schools in the state of Kansas to offer the students the International Baccalaureate program. And whereas Dick's professional career began as a teacher and coach, talents he still continues to use daily, resulting in a school community where there is increased morale among students, less discipline required, and greater success for all. And whereas he is loved by students, faculty, staff, and all in our community for his friendliness, fair-mindedness, and commitment to helping others to be the best they can be. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Steve Schoenberg, Mayor of the City of Mission, Kansas, on behalf of its citizens, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, June 15, 2016 as Richard Kramer Day. Susie, might want to say something else. Mary? Oh, sure.
I would just like to say, how long did I serve with you on the site council, Dick?
All the years, every year.
Every year.
9 years.
So 9 years. And I can tell you that the first back to school night I went to, I heard Dick Kramer say, parents, let your children fail. Did you not? And I looked at this guy and I'm thinking, what principal would get up in front of all these parents and say, let your children fail? But you know, as you come to know Dick, you know that his commitment to those students is amazing. So that's not really what you meant, but I knew where you were coming from, and it was an amazing speech, and I think everybody just took it to heart. Dick has just taken Shawnee Mission North to new heights. I commend you. I loved, I go up there and you'll see him running around in his sneakers or his tennis shoes or his Adidas and talking to kids during recess or they're passing the halls. And it's just amazing how fast he goes, like ever jogging bunny. You have taken North to places that I don't think anybody else has, Dick. We have a great reputation. Getting state basketball championship, that was awesome. The IB program is awesome. And like you said at our site council, morale is up, discipline is down at Shawnee Mission North. What a great way to lead Shawnee Mission North. You'll be missed. Hard shoes to fill. I will miss you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nick, what time has a recess up there?
Sorry, I got my grades mixed up.
Thank you.
Next, we have Chairman Ed Eilert and District Attorney Steve Howe with us, and they will provide an update on the Johnson County Courthouse sales tax.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for allowing us to come and share a few minutes with you this evening in regards to that question. And let me say congratulations, Tom. Local government is where it's at. And I've always enjoyed many years, as I know several members of the council have, and I think you're going to like it. So congratulations. Steve and I want to talk a little bit about a question that's been before the Board of County Commissioners really for the past 15 years. And that's what to do with our existing courthouse. Do we continue to spend money remodeling a facility that in some parts is 62 years old, or should we take that money and invest it in a new facility? The other part of the question is, our coroner's operation has never had a coroner's facility. Back in the old days, I'm told the coroner used to have access to some of the mortuary rooms that would be used for autopsies. And today, for the last 20 years, I'm told, we rent space from a private organization in Wyandotte County. So that's also part of the question. Want to give you just I think this copies of the presentation have been distributed. I'm going to hand it off to District Attorney Howe in just a couple of minutes. I also want to recognize Aaron Otto, who's here this evening. I think all of you know Aaron. We robbed him from Roland Park to come to work for the county, and he does an excellent job. But first of all, I want to visit just a couple of minutes about the county's budget. I've always felt that I don't want to ask voters or taxpayers for more dollars without explaining where we're at this point in time. So just a quick overview of our 2016 budget. The budget number, the total budget is $924 million. That's a big number, but about 28% of that does not involve local tax dollars. And so let me go through the numbers. On the pie chart, you'll notice over on the right-hand side, there's a number of about $328 million. That's the county's operating budget. That's our basic operation. Then if you'll drop down to the lower left-hand corner, there's an item $151 million. That's Johnson County wastewater. Johnson County wastewater receives no tax dollars. It is a utility and it's fee-based. So we depend upon our customers paying their bills monthly, yearly, what have you. But there are no tax dollars that support Johnson County wastewater. You go up the left side, you'll see libraries at about $31 or $32 million, and parks at about $30 million. Those are two separate taxing districts. They have their own mill levy, and they are not part of the county's operating budget. We keep them separate, and we do not shift funds back and forth. You'll go up above Parks and Rec, and there's another item, about $20 million, it's called Enterprise Fund. Those are the fees that are collected by Johnson County Parks for various programs, whether they're youth programs, senior programs. That's an enterprise fund, and that money stays separate. Moving up a little further, there's an airport enterprise fund. New Century and Johnson County Executive, they receive no tax dollars. They receive their revenue from airport activities as well as property and businesses. There are 43 businesses located on New Century Airport. They have land leases and pay rent. That's what supports the airports. Then at the very top, there's 60 million grants from federal government, from state government for various specific projects. Again, not direct dollars, tax dollars. And if you go around to the right, you'll see Johnson County also, we have some fees that we charge for various services. That's about $10 million a year. Again, no tax dollars. So if you add those up all together, that's about $255 million of that 924 that does not involve local property tax or sales taxes. Another number I want to mention is down in the lower left-hand corner. There's an $80 million number. It says for double accounting. I taught high school accounting for 4 years. I've never been across this, but this is the way it works. I'm told, and the simple way is, if I have $100 in my savings account and $100 in my checking account, I have a $200 budget. If I move $100 from my savings account to my checking account, that increases my budget by $100, according to the Government Accounting Standard Board. And when I pay it out, $100 paid out, that's another budget increase. So I haven't had any more revenue. I haven't asked for any more revenue, but my budget just doubled from 200 to 400 from that kind of transaction. And that's the way we have to report it. So 80 million, almost 10% of our budget is represented by that double accounting. The other number I want to mention is the reserve fund, 185 million. And we get a lot of questions about the reserve fund. They say, Chairman, well, why don't you spend that 185 million and you won't have to ask us for any additional revenue. Well, again, you need to look under the hood and break those numbers down. The top line on this chart shows you $62 million is the general fund reserve. That equals 21% of our general fund. And our policy is 20 to 25%. So we're at the low end of that. And we need to maintain that in order to keep our AAA bond rating. The other part of that is, since the tax lid was passed, we're getting indications from the bond rating agencies that they want us to be somewhere around 30% on that general fund reserve. And so you'll probably see it go up a little bit, maybe somewhere around 25%, but it's important that we keep that AAA. So that's really the fund reserve that we have available to meet emergencies or whatever the issue. You'll also see on the second line, Johnson County Developmental Supports, Johnson County Mental Health, two big agencies that depend upon reimbursements from state, federal government, or private insurance companies, and so they both have reserves. Public Works, we have about $2 million in that reserve. Thank goodness we didn't have to spend any of it, much of it this year. Didn't have to pay overtime for snow removal. We didn't have any floods or bridge washout or anything like that. So that number is for those operations. Then if you drop down to the bottom line on this chart, $77 million, that's for Johnson County wastewater. And again, that's not tax dollars, that's fees generated by Johnson County wastewater. About 20 million of that is for operating expense. We try to maintain about 2.5 months of operating expense in our reserve. In case I don't pay my bill or a whole bunch of other people don't pay the bill, we need to still be able to operate. And then about 57 million is in the capital reserve fund to meet emergencies that have to be attended to. The other part is we're making a decision about doubling the size of the Tomahawk Creek sewer plant, which is located at Mission Road and I-435. And so we've been building up that capital reserve to soften any rate increase. Then you have parks and libraries, separate taxing districts. They also have their own reserve accounts. And then that other line says designated funds. You're all familiar with the stormwater fund. The stormwater tax levied countywide basically goes to city to use for stormwater management projects. We don't mix that. That's a designated fund. All that money stays there for stormwater. Another interesting one is 911 funds. We have about $5.5 million in that reserve. But by state statute, we can't spend that money on anything but 911 services. So those designated funds also are in that 185 million. So when you look under the hood, it's really 62 million that we have in the general fund reserve that we can expend for general county operations. The rest of the money is of that reserve fund is designated. So if somebody says you got 185 million, why don't you spend that? Well, we can't. Simple answer. We can't for general county purposes. Going to the courthouse. About 400,000 people a year move through the courthouse. I don't know how many have been there. I think the last time I was there to get a marriage license. On official business, let me put it that way. And the district attorney hasn't called me for anything else. So, but any of us in the county, registered voters, you can be called for jury duty. And that's where most of our residents enter the courthouse, is for jury duty. There are some specific, let me give you a little history. The existing courthouse, parts of it was built in 1952, so it's over 60 years old. There have been 3 additions to the courthouse, the last one in 1975, and so the newest part of the facility is at least 40 years old. One of the biggest problems we have is public safety. If you've been to the courthouse, you'll know that the public and the prisoners have to use the same hallway. And so it's a little disconcerting when you walk down the hallway and you see a string of 9 or 10 prisoners in shackles escorted by sheriff's officers, and you have to stand aside and let them pass. The sheriff does a good job of protecting the public, but that's an issue that we need to be able to address. The other issue is in the courtroom. The courtrooms were old offices, reconverted to courtrooms, and Mr. Howe tells me in some cases he's seen a juror be able to reach out and almost touch the criminal defendant that he's having to make a decision about. That, again, is not a good situation, and we need to take care of it. The building is old, it's aging, and there are all kinds of structural problems. We've been spending about $2 million a year up until the last couple of years, when we decided we finally had to make a decision. So we were going to stop spending money on the repair work, and we will await the voters' decision in November. There's one crack in the outside surface of the building, running all the way from the basement up to the top of the building. Here's the courthouse layout, which demonstrates the public hallway is identified by the yellow lines, kind of on a rectangular basis. The dark areas are the courtrooms. And so those public hallways, the yellow part designated is where the criminals and the public have to mix and walk by each other. If you're a victim and your attacker is out on bail, you could be standing there in the hallway and that individual comes right by you on the way to court. That's not a good situation. Here's the proposal. Item identified as number 1. It's immediately north of the existing courthouse on the other side of north side of Santa Fe. That's where the new courthouse would be built. Item number 2 is where the existing courthouse sits, and that would be torn down and turned into public space. Number 3 is the current Olathe City Hall, which will give you some perspective as where the new courthouse would be, immediately west of the Olathe City Hall. There is a tunnel that runs under Kansas Avenue from the jail to the courthouse for the transport of prisoners, and that tunnel would be extended north across Santa Fe to the new courthouse. So that current tunnel will continue to be used, and a new tunnel would be so we don't have to bus the prisoners, and they would still be in a secure area. The cost of the new courthouse, we estimated $182 million in today's dollars. And that would address all the public safety concerns, keeping the public and the prisoners separated. That would address ADA concerns. It would also address technology concerns. You'll see later we only have about 3 courtrooms that have modern day technology. Here's a further breakdown of the components of that cost: $178 million for new construction, about $3 million for tear down, and then money available for the public space. Here's a potential layout of the new courthouse. It would be a 9-story building. 6 stories would be for courts. We currently have 23 courts. We would build for 28 because of our growing population. Our population is estimated at Wichita State University to more than double in the next 50 years, going from about 580,000 to 1.2 million. And that 50 years sounds like a long time, but that's 10,000 new residents a year in Johnson County. That means over 6 years, our population gain would be equal to the current population of Manhattan, Kansas, if you can imagine that. So we do need to plan for the future. But here's a potential layout. The yellow space is still for the public. Pink space would be the courtrooms. And if you look closely between the pink spaces, there's a green space. That would be where the prisoner elevators would be located. And on each floor where they would disembark from the elevator would be a secure holding area. So they would never have to mix with the public. And the only time the public would view them is when they are in the courtroom, and they would move directly to the courtroom. I mentioned 6 floors for courts. There would be 1 floor for the district attorney office and all the space that they need. Another floor would be for court trustee, court services, and then the lower level would be for obviously entrance, as well as space for jurors who are called in to be in secure areas. As I indicated, we have 23 courtrooms. We're going to build for 28, and these are the additional courtrooms and the dockets in which those additional courtrooms would be available. Here's a potential view of a new courthouse. It's probably not going to look anything like this. This is some artist who had the idea. Design has not been done yet and will not begin unless the election is approved in November. And now I'm going to turn it over to the district attorney who will tell us a little bit about the Corners facility. Steve?
It's a pleasure to be before all of you and talk a little bit about the election item that's going to be here in November. The Coroner facility. What is the Coroner's office? What does it do? We don't use it very often, but it does have a huge impact on our community. The Coroner is to examine bodies on drug overdoses, suspicious deaths that could include homicide. You also have suicides, and you have also situations, let's say a loved one is killed in an auto accident, determine the cause of death and some of those types of situations. So there's a real need for a coroner facility that can handle these types of activities. This is where we do our autopsies. And basically,
I
it's a
need to
metal
intercept.
shed.
I grew up in the country. This is a 1950s public building. I mean, that's what it is.
And that is where we do our autopsies in Wyandotte County. As you know, I'm sure all of you watch CSI and all those crime shows, right? The ability for DNA and trace evidence to detect those types of things is so sensitive now. A good example is if I touch this podium with my finger, crime lab comes back and swabs that. In all likelihood, they're going to get my DNA. And it's that type of sensitivity that requires us to have a better facility. And the reason for that, or one of the reasons, is cross-contamination. If you've got several bodies in that facility, it's not set up to prevent cross-contamination in those types of situations. It's also kind of a security risk for people like my office and Chief Hadley's staff. We go to the autopsy and we're in close proximity to that body. Well, that body, if it has an infectious disease, we potentially could be subject to that. And so there's a real risk there. New autopsy facilities have what's called viewing rooms, where you view it from another location and you have cameras over where the coroner performs his work. And that allows for safety for the individuals to do their work, and also allow for the safety of the people who need to be there. So that is the building. The other thing that this building doesn't have is it's not accredited. Our Johnson County Crime Lab, we were lucky, we passed a public safety tax and we built a new lab. That lab is probably the top 5 in the country and does a lot of great work and helps the chief and I solve a lot of crimes. And it's an accredited center. But the problem is our coroner's facility doesn't meet those standards. And in fact, we're going to get to a point where we're going to have to meet those accreditation standards, or it's going to start calling into question some of the findings of the coroner. And so it's really important. The other thing is toxicology. We can't do our own on-site toxicology. We send that off to a private lab for examination. And you may think, well, what's the big deal? Well, it could take weeks for us to get the results back. And sometimes that's very important in my criminal cases to know what those results would say. And another thing, in a public health situation, I'll give you a good example. I recently went out and talked to the media about this new synthetic drug, U-47000, that is 8 times more potent than morphine. We've already got 3 overdose deaths in Johnson County, and we're having others in the state. The problem is we have to wait weeks to get those findings. Well, those findings, by taking weeks, we don't know, we can't investigate what's the cause of it. We can't investigate where those drugs came from because we don't know what drugs we're talking about, and it delays many things. So a new facility would allow us to do it on-site in an immediate response. The other thing is, so many times we're at the mercy of the private individuals who own this facility. If you have a loved one who dies and there's an autopsy performed, it's not uncommon for them to have to wait weeks, up to a month, before they get the ability to release the body back to them. That shouldn't happen. And we don't have the facility in order for those things to be done. Right now we do about 250 autopsies a year. If you talk to the experts in the field of forensic science, what they'll tell you is a community this large, we should be doing over 300 a year. And why that is important is a lot of times you may not catch things that you should be catching about things like infectious diseases, or you may not catch a classic example is an elder abuse case where you think it's just somebody dying from old age, and in fact you may have some elder abuse going on. So those are all reasons why we need to be able to step up our game and have a facility to meet the needs of today's technology. And so, you know, here's a list of those things that we talked about. Also, that facility is not set up for us to have a compassionate way for people to come and view their loved ones and identify them. It's just not set up that way. Another reason why we need to move on. Where it's going to be located. It's in Olathe. The proposed site is right next to the Johnson County Crime Lab and across the parking lot from Public Health. So there's a lot of symmetry there. You have two agencies who would be the chief users of the corner facility being in close proximity. So that means if I have a criminal investigation, my crime lab folks can walk across the street and go to the corners facility, take the evidence that they need and go right back in there. So it's really efficient. The other thing is public health. If you have a good example, Olathe Northwest had a child who had tuberculosis, and they ended up having to do all this testing to make sure that there wasn't going to be a problem at that school. And that's a good example of what we can do by doing this testing to make sure that we put a stop of any type of problems in that area. It's $19 million. It's a facility that can grow with Johnson County. And the only other major facility in the metropolitan area is in Jackson County. And a lot of people ask, why don't we use the Jackson County facility? Well, Jackson County has a contract with all the bordering counties that they do their work as well. And I can tell you, they don't have the capacity to handle our work. And so there's a real need as we continue to grow to have a facility that can meet the needs of Johnson County in the future. So I'm going to turn it back over and let the accountant talk a little bit about money here for you.
Steve, thank you very much. On the financing end, put the two projects together, 182 million, 19 million, it's a little over 200 million. We looked at several different financing options. One would be a property tax increase, would take about 2 mills and take about 20 years to pay for these two facilities. Besides being a property tax increase, it would double the interest cost from about 42 million to about 85 million. So we've decided that the county does have available to it by state statute authority for a 1/4 cent sales tax, which has to be used for public safety. Has to be sunsetted in 10 years. So it has a definite life and then it goes away. 1/4 cent sales tax would raise about $30 million in Johnson County. However, the state statute says the county has to share about 1/3 of that with the cities. We have no choice. That's what the state statute says, and that's what the authorization says. Obviously, in property tax, if we use the property tax, only Johnson County property owners would pay. With the sales tax, about 22% comes from folks who visit our county, make purchases in our county, etc. 1/4 cent sales tax on a $100 purchase, 25 cents additional. On a $1,000 purchase, $2.50. A couple of issues involved. We're getting pretty close to 10% in a lot of cities on that sales tax. And that's an issue. We understand that. I think in Mission it would go from 9.35 to about 9.65. Now, that's not counting any spatial CID or any other taxing districts that you might have. But let's say big ticket items such as an automobile, a $30,000 purchase, it's going to mean another $75. I doubt if you're looking at that kind of a purchase, additional $75 will make that much difference. But it is an issue. We recognize that. City of Mission, over the 10-year period of time, is that 2.3 million or 3.3 million? I think it's 2.3 million. The City of Mission would receive as their share of that sales tax that has to be shared by the city or by the county. And that formula is based upon population and assessed value. And you can see the larger cities, interesting point, Bonner Springs would get $5,400. Bonner Springs has no population in Johnson County, but south of the river they have some warehousing and some industrial sites. So even though there's no population there and they have no retail, they still receive some of the money. Okay, big question is, why not continue to use the existing courthouse? And this is an issue that we looked at. I must tell you, when I first went on the council in 2007, one of the first projects I saw was a $300 million new courthouse. I was skeptical. Well, we've been able to bring that price down from 300 to 182 million. But then begin to look at what it would cost to continue to use the 1645-year-old building. And we have ADA problems with our current building. The estimate, it would cost about $8 to $10 million just to take care of the ADA, meet minimum ADA standards. And in doing so, we would have to remove about 3 or 4 courtrooms because there's not enough space to put in ramps, etc., in the existing courtrooms. So we would have to build, if we're going to match the 28, we might have to build another 10 or 12 courtrooms in a new addition to the existing courthouse. That's probably a $50 or $60 million project in and of itself. So you put all those things together. Are you going to invest? I think the total amount estimated is a little over $200 million. Are you going to invest that kind of money over 12 or 15 years in the existing facility, or should you go ahead and build a new facility that will cost less than that and will last for 75 years? Another issue is the operating expense. To continue to utilize the current facility compared to a new energy efficient facility with other improvements would cost an additional $7 to $7.5 million a year difference between the operating costs for the new facility and the existing facility. So that's another $7 million annually that we could save. We have set up for those who would like to tour the existing courthouse. If you've not been there, would like to see what condition it is, we have set aside dates and times. Call this number and we would invite you to come out and tour the existing courthouse, just to give you a first-hand view of what everybody faces on a daily basis. And we've got about a 5-minute video. Could we run that now? And if there's time, I'll be glad to answer questions.
There's not much that's new about the Johnson County Courthouse. Serious talk about replacing this building isn't new either. It was built well over 60 years ago, and even though it's been expanded 3 times and updated at least 7, problems with the building persist. Those problems include 1, safety and security, 2, a decaying structure with outdated technology, and 3, accessibility for people with disabilities. We begin with safety and security. The Johnson County Courthouse is laid out in such a way that forces inmates to use public hallways. The sheriff's office has to stretch manpower to keep them separated from the public. And when a defendant is free on bail, there's even more of a chance they'll encounter their victim in the hall.
Based on the current configuration of the courthouse, we cannot prevent that from happening. And it's unfortunate because it's intimidating to those individuals.
The layout of the courthouse also doesn't allow for secured waiting areas for victims. That's something this crime victim could have used. She describes a close encounter in the hall with her attacker.
It's completely uncomfortable, it's scary, it's not anything you want to go through, especially after everything you've already gone through, and being nervous with him walking by you is just awful. Awful.
The concerns about a safe environment go beyond crime victims. Any registered voter in the county can be called to jury duty. But in some cases, violent offenders wait in rooms like this, just a few feet away from where the jury decides their fate.
The defendant goes out of here, and the jury comes out of here. And we're all in the same little area.
Sheriff's deputies have to go to great lengths to make sure jurors and defendants don't bump into each other.
I've had a number of jurors after trials indicate that, based on the current configuration of the courthouse, that they felt extremely uncomfortable having to have so much direct contact with dangerous individuals.
Then there's the security of the over 400,000 people who pass through here in a given year.
We don't want to have to wait until tragedy happens to convince everyone that it's time for importance.
Next, we look at the building's decaying infrastructure and outdated technology. Crumbling walls, walls separating from windows, and a crack in an outside wall that starts in the foundation and stretches all the way to the roof. Water often leaks from ceilings and leads to additional concerns, like potential mold. Only 3 of 23 courtrooms have modern audiovisual equipment. The other 20 rely on electronics that in some cases date back to the 80s, like these boom boxes. If a new courthouse isn't built, the county would have to do a major remodel to bring those 20 courtrooms into the 21st century.
You basically have to gut it all the way down to the pillars and columns before you can put in the technology and run all the cabling and wire.
Finally, we take a look at all the courthouse's problems with accessibility.
The vast majority of courtrooms in this courthouse are not set up to allow a person with disabilities to come into the courtroom and testify.
Most doorways are too narrow. It's hard for someone in a wheelchair to wheel themselves through without crushing their fingers. This man had to balance himself on his crutches while he opened his own door.
We don't have enough space to have a ramp. We don't have enough space to cut down the jury boxes and make them flat and expand them.
County leaders are also considering the need for a new coroner facility.
I've been involved in the coroner's office in Johnson County for about the last 20 years. During all of those 20 years, we have rented facilities from other people in order to do our autopsies.
Right now, investigations of suspicious deaths in Johnson County take place in Wyandotte County at this privately owned lab. Johnson County investigators can't obtain and process DNA and trace evidence here.
We do not have a facility that is designed to take full advantage of 21st century forensic science.
Johnson County is also trying to keep pace with 21st century demographic trends. The courthouse opened in 1952 to serve a population of just under 63,000. Today, the county has well over 500,000 residents. The county's plan for a new courthouse looks like this. It would have 28 new courtrooms, and a new state-of-the-art coroner facility would be built at another location. The new courthouse would cost approximately $182 million and could be built in 4 years. The new coroner facility would cost $19 million. If a new courthouse isn't built, expanding, renovating, and much more expensive, $216 million versus $182, an already old structure would keep getting older, and the cost of maintaining the aging infrastructure would keep rising up. Accessibility would improve, but remain very limited, and inmates would still be moving in public areas.
And you're literally shaking.
It's not comfortable, and I wish that he would be off to the side so we're not walking through the hall with him.
We want to have an appropriate, safe courthouse for everybody that comes to the courtroom, jurors, and public, or people coming to do their business.
Whatever Johnson County residents decide about the future of their courthouse, it remains the vital cornerstone to American democracy. For Johnson County government, I'm Eric Schultz.
I want to emphasize one of the things that was mentioned there in the closing moments is that even if we renovate the courthouse, we would not solve the problem of criminals and public mixing in the same hallway. That would not happen. And number two, I am told, well, if we renovated the existing courthouse, most of that work would have to be done at night. You can't shut down the courthouse for a year and do the renovations. Contractors tell me you're looking at 20 to 25% increase in cost just from that situation. So we've tried to look at all the elements, and the sales tax question will be on the ballot. November general election, a $0.25 for 10 years will be sunsetted at the end of 10 years. So thank you all very much for your time. I should note the information we presented this evening is educational. In our information provided by the county, we cannot promote yes or no, one way or the other. However, I'm not under that restriction. So I would encourage you to look at the information, make your own judgment. If you're wanting to support this effort, let me know, and we will have an advocacy group that will be put together to promote a yes vote on this issue. And the educational material from the county will be distributed in several different forms. We have a JOCO magazine, which will be a couple of issues. Best Time, for those of us 55 or older, we received that And then we will have a social media activity also. But we do need a group who will support and advocate for a yes vote. So if there's time for questions, be glad to have them.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. You probably looked at this, but this is just an inquiry on my part. Did you look at any economies of scale by putting the coroner facility right next to the courthouse so you didn't have to buy additional land and maybe you build at the same time?
Good question. We don't have to buy the land. We already have the land for the coroner facility, which is immediately south of the crime lab. And there's not enough room. We are negotiating with the city of Olathe. And if you look at the numbers, I think over the 10 years, Olathe would receive about $3.3 million a year over 10 years. And we think Olathe is going to be in a position to provide the land to the county at no cost. So
One quick thing to add on to that. Are we under any liability consideration because that facility in Wyandotte County is not accredited?
We're not under any liability, but what we are trying to avoid is a situation where the findings of the coroner are called into question because it's not an accredited situation.
Is
So
that part of our contract with them? Is that a performance standard or anything?
you know, that is a pretty loose contract. Basically, it's like you provide us a service, you give us findings, and we pay you a certain fee, and that's about the extent of the contract that we have. But it's a concern, and as technology becomes more sensitive, it's going to be a bigger issue as we move forward.
Yeah, I got a question. I heard you say that when you first came to the county, there was a proposal, it was like $300 million. How long ago was that?
that was in '07. That was in '07. This has been on the county's radar since about 2001. And I think there have been at least 2, maybe 3 professional studies done on the courthouse. We've had at least 2 citizens group who later looked at issues involving the courthouse. And in every instance, they said a new courthouse is the way to go. Why did we come from 300 down to 182 million? Well, the old standard in courthouses used to be courtrooms were assigned by judges' seniority. That's no longer effective in the new courthouse. And so instead of having one courtroom for each judge, and it'll only be used by that judge, every courtroom will be available. However, there are some dockets, criminal dockets, let's say, juvenile dockets, which might be handled a little differently. But there will be no, I'm a judge and I have my courtroom.
That 300 million was also like 36 courtrooms, I think.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a larger number.
But I guess the point is that's 15 years you said they've been looking at this since 2001, because then obviously you knew the building had to be replaced. So in that time, there's been no money set aside in a dedicated fund for building fund, or?
No, simply because
Couldn't be budgeted?
It couldn't be budgeted. We faced the recession, for the last 8 years. And so it was just a matter of, how do you set aside $182 million in a 10-year period of time? You can't do it.
A good example of what we've been facing is last year I was in the middle of a murder trial. We had one elevator working in the entire facility, and we couldn't get our jurors up there. We couldn't get our witnesses up there, and then the county had to spend $1 million just to get 3 functioning elevators. And so it's that type of money, real money, you're going to have to start investing to keep that facility running.
I don't think there's any doubt that the building needs to be replaced. That's obvious. I've been in it once without handcuffs on.
That's always good.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Well, thank you all very much for your time. Really do appreciate it, Mayor and council members. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, folks.
Thanks.
Well, we'll get back to it here. We do not have any notes or bonds tonight. However, our consent agenda has 6 items. Now, if a council member, staff, or member of the public would like an item removed from the consent agenda, they may request that at this time. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move the city council adopt the consent agenda as printed, items 3A through 3F.
Second.
Please call roll.
Appletoft,
Aye.
Schlossmacher,
Aye.
Gibbs,
Aye.
Geraghty,
Aye.
Inman,
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Rothrock,
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
If there's any questions regarding our community committees, you may ask staff. We'll bring this up under new business. Next is public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. Come on up. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Linda Huang, and my address is 10930 West 143rd Terrace, Overland Park, Kansas 66221. And thank you so much for giving the opportunity to come to speak to you. And my husband and I, we came from China 20 years ago. And we went to K-State first, and then we moved to Kansas City in 1997. And because of the health issue, and in 1997, we both learned the traditional Chinese culture related to mind and body practice, so Falun Dafa, Falun Gong. It teaches the principle of truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, and also the meditation exercises, which give us the tremendous health benefits in just a couple of weeks and through to learn. And we were so happy, and we plan to go back to China because these wonderful practices originated from Chinese traditional culture. But unfortunately, since the next year, the 1999, July of 1999, the Chinese communist regimes initiated severe persecution against hundreds of millions of people Falun Gong in China, as well as harassment all over the world. And 4 of our lovely kids can never see their grandparents in China, and we never get a chance to go back to China because as so many evidences has been saying that as soon as we get into China, we'll be in much trouble. It's just like before we become the citizens of the U.S. Citizen, and our Chinese passport was confiscated by the Chinese consulates in Chicago as soon as they learn that we do Falun Gong. And also we are on their blacklist. And yeah, and then more and more evidence has been showed up and reported that after the persecution, hundreds of thousands of innocent people were jailed and tortured and beaten to death. And the horrific crime is their organs were harvested to sell it to worldwide organ transplantation business. And the crime has been going on, still going on. And today I'm here to request all of your the officials to give a justice voice to help stop this atrocity and help support the basic human rights by passing a resolution. And I prepared a sample and also for everyone to look over. And thank you so much.
Thank you, and we're sorry for all the trouble, and we will pass those out after the meeting.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Under action items, is there anyone else that would like to come forward on public comments? Okay. Under action items, we do not have any items from the Planning Commission tonight. Next is our committee reports. If Councilmember Appletoft, would you please provide a report from the Finance and Administration Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item I want to talk about is amendments to Chapter 210, Animal Control. At the May City Council meeting, this item was discussed and referred back to the Finance and Administration Committee for further discussion. Following that meeting on June 1st, a new ordinance has been prepared for consideration. This ordinance would allow for a household to own a combined total of 4 cats and dogs. That's 4 animals. But no household would be allowed to own more than 3 cats or more than 3 dogs. No permit would be required for maintaining the number of animals outlined in the ordinance. The ordinance also includes other charges that were previously reviewed by the committee and recommended. Those being changes to the rabies vaccination and control, reduction in the minimum impoundment period before releasing an animal for adoption, a more comprehensive animal cruelty section, and the addition of a section that places an affirmative burden on the owner of an animal to provide humane care, food, and shelter. The changes have been discussed in detail with the Animal Control Officer and the Northeast Animal Control Operations Supervisor, and they are supportive of the recommendations. Therefore, Mayor, I move that the City Council approve an ordinance repealing Chapter 210 of the Code of the City of Mission regarding animal control in its entirety and adopting a new Chapter 210 regarding the same.
Second. Is there any discussion? Please call roll.
Gibbs.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Appletoft.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Geraghty.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Our second item is 6B, dealing with mental health co-responder program. A mental health co-responder program provides intervention for residents experiencing either mental health or substance abuse crisis. The co-responder is a mental health professional who will respond to calls as needed with our mission police officers when there is a need for mental health intervention. The benefits of the program include the ability to reduce repeated calls to the same house, fewer evaluations being done at the hospital, and now they can be done on-site at the scene, fewer incidents ending in arrest, and also the ability to provide citizens a great service in the time of crisis. This program is facilitated by Johnson County, and there is a shared agreement among 7 cities: Prairie Village, Leawood, Merriam, Mission, Fairway, Westwood, and Roland Park. And the cost of the program is apportioned to each city based on its population. Mission's annual cost for 2017 would be $10,047.41, or 11% of the contract price. Therefore, Mayor, I move the City Council approve the comprehensive memorandum of understanding for the Johnson County Mental Health Co-Responder Program in an amount not to exceed $10,047.41 for 2017.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call roll.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Geraghty.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Appletoft.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Gibbs.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Is that complete?
Oh, I'm sorry, that completes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Rothrock, would you please provide a report on our community development committee?
Sure. First item I have is the resolution accepting the Parks Master Plan. The Parks Master Plan serves as a planning document to guide the city in resource allocation and decision-making related to the delivery of parks and recreation services for the next 5 to 10 years. It provides recommendations on how to maintain and enhance our parks, recreation facilities, and programs to meet public needs and expectations. The plan was reviewed by the Park and Recreation Commission and recommended for acceptance by the Community Development Committee and the City Council. Mayor, I move the city council approve a resolution accepting the Mission Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call roll.
Gibbs,
Aye.
Inman,
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Rothrock,
Aye.
Schlesmacher,
Aye.
Appletoft,
Aye.
Geraghty.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the resolution accepting the Safe Routes to School Phase 1 study. In 2004, Mission was awarded $20,000 in federal funding to perform a Safe Routes to School Phase 1 study. This program seeks to substantially improve the ability of primary and middle school students to walk from bicycle to school safety. Olson Associates and staff performed the study over the 2015 school year. The process included public meetings, stakeholder interviews, presentations, and outreach events at each school, walking audits, and professional engineering studies. Accepting of the study does not obligate the city to any specific course of action, but projects will be discussed and prioritized for inclusion in future budgets. Therefore, Mayor, I move the City Council approve a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Mission Safe Routes to School Phase 1 study.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call roll.
Appletoft,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Rothrock,
Aye.
Inman,
Aye.
Gibbs,
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Geraghty,
Aye.
Schlesmacher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Last, we have the Bridge Shore cancellation resolution. The city was recently notified by Bridge Shore Development that they were not awarded 2016 low-income housing tax credits for the Harold Corner project. They have requested that the existing real estate purchase and pre-development agreement for the former Neff property be canceled. The proposed resolution approves this action and authorizes the mayor to execute a cancellation and mutual release agreement. For the existing agreement, the city will retain $22,500 of the earnest funds previously deposited by Bridge Shore to be applied to the cost of demolition of the structure. Mayor, I move the City Council approve a resolution approving and authorizing the mayor to execute a cancellation and mutual release agreement between the City of Mission, Kansas and Bridge Shore Development, LLC, to terminate a real estate purchase and pre-development agreement.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call roll.
Geraghty,
Aye.
Appletoft,
Aye.
Schlesmacher,
Aye.
Rothrock,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Inman,
Aye.
Gibbs.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We do not have any unfinished business, so we'll go to new business. And tonight we have one item under new business. Ms. Smith will provide information on Safe Routes to School Phase 2 grant application.
Thank you, Mayor. Following our discussion at the committee meeting, we had several concerns that were raised there, and then afterward, the city had submitted, in connection with the Phase 1 study that was accepted, we had submitted for a federal grant through an application process at the Mid-America Regional Council for a 2019 funding cycle. We selected 3 projects which we felt were larger in scale than we might want to undertake on our own, that required very little additional maintenance or design work in connection with those, and probably most importantly, we picked the ones that would score favorably under the grant application process. Particularly in a federal grant process, they're going to look at having a wider scale impact. So very localized projects around some of our schools that may be very high priorities for us as a city don't score as favorably under the grant process. So we did submit that grant application. It is currently under review. It has received the highest score in the any Kansas or Missouri project that has been submitted. But after listening to the committee's concerns, certainly understand some of the issues that were raised in terms of how those projects were selected or where those might fall in terms of priority. So now is the opportunity, before we move much further in the grant process, to look for council either support to allow the application to move through its process, or to amend that application to reduce the scope and address some of the items of concern that were raised. So we're happy to answer any other questions.
Is there discussion on this?
Yeah, so just to be clear, we don't have the ability at this point to amend what we may want to go after for some of those projects. I mean, we're pretty much stuck with trying to apply for these 3 specific things, right?
In this cycle, yes. So we could certainly, as it moves through the process, the next opportunity for this same grant cycle would be in 2018 with construction in 21 or 22. So we can certainly pick other projects. Again, we would have to look at what those would be and how they would be considered in the grant process.
And can you just refresh us on the breakdown of what the cost of those 3 items might be?
Absolutely.
Estimated costs on those?
So the total estimated cost for all 3 of the projects, which was crosswalk improvements, including flashing beacons at 63rd and Knoll, crosswalk improvements, including flashing beacon at 53rd and Outlook, and then the installation of bike lanes running the length of Lamar Avenue on both the north and southbound sides. The goal of the bike lanes was to reduce the traffic speeds and it increase the separation between cars and pedestrians along that stretch. So the total estimated cost was about $151,000. 80% of that would be funded through the grant. It's about 80% or $120,000, and then the city would be responsible for the balance and how to identify that funding between now and the construction cycle in 2019.
And the cost of the crosswalk at 53rd and Outlook to replace the signal that's already there, what was that one?
That was about $38,000.
And Knoll was about 60.
Knoll was about 27, yes.
The whole amount or our portion?
The full amount. And then, so that leaves your striping at about 85.
So Laura, on that, we cannot change or pick and choose if we want sidewalks on this particular grant process, but we can eliminate what we want and choose out of those 3, correct?
Right. If we wanted to, if we think our choices at this point are leave them all in, take them all out, or request an amendment to remove some that we have concerns about.
This motion says that we're just taking out the 2 beacon lights and leaving in the bike lanes, right?
Yes, if that's not the preferred direction, we can amend that motion.
Well, I mean, it all comes down to safety for me. And I do think the bike lanes provide that buffer on Lamar. I don't think it would be used just for school children, and maybe that's what the committee looks at. Is more of a rounded use on that, is that?
I think it's more global impact, more, your regional, or you're impacting larger percentage of your population.
And as we learned on Johnson Drive, the beacons sometimes do not stop traffic.
And this grant
That's the
application
concern.
process was not just for Safe Routes to School projects. So it was a project that looked at enhancing pedestrian mobility, walkability, bikeability, all of those kinds of things.
Laura, if we do beacon lights, do we not have to have a traffic engineer study to make sure the lights are in the proper place? Can we just automatically say that's what we want?
Well, that's what you had in Olson. Olson was looking at it from that traffic engineering
So
perspective.
he can sign off on
Yes.
it. And even though 53rd Street is a thoroughfare that goes clear through, he thought that was safe to take that stoplight out.
To replace it with the flashing beacons, yes.
So do we own that track? Do we own the power line? Do we own
That signal is actually owned by Kansas City Power and Light.
Yeah, I think at the meeting, didn't you say something about that traffic signal, that it's not,
Warranted.
yeah,
So,
something.
so for example, if we looked at that, if we had reviewed that and said we would like to replace it with a stoplight, in a federal grant application process, this is exactly the same thing we went through with the signal at Woodson and Johnson Drive, where if there are federal dollars coming into that and the traffic signal isn't warranted, those dollars can't be applied to that project. So it becomes, we can still put the signal in, but it's 100% our cost.
Right.
So that's why the beacon there allows that and makes that 53rd and Outlook project eligible to be considered in the grant funding.
because there's a warranty on the beacon?
Warranted means there's enough, from a traffic engineering
Oh,
standpoint.
that it's needed.
warranted, that it's needed.
You're saying
essentially.
that light is not needed?
It would not be a warranted signal. If we came out and had a traffic engineer and said, where would you recommend? Would you recommend from a traffic engineering perspective that you put a signal there?
There's not enough traffic.
There's not enough traffic
Just
to warrant
crossing
it.
traffic when the kids are at school.
Right.
Well, there's a traffic signal on 55th and, well, I didn't run 53rd, so.
There's enough traffic there.
Those are warranted.
I'm in there one by your house.
Because there's enough traffic.
A light.
There's nothing in front of your house, man.
That's what we're talking about.
And I say again, I told everyone, when we looked at these projects, this shouldn't have come to council, but it was my fault. I thought we could kind of switch and choose because I saw this 53rd and it's not anybody's fault but mine. I should have read a little better, but I thought maybe we could trade it for some sidewalks. We cannot switch, so.
But we could pull that 53rd Street signal off of this, or ask them to amend it and remove that from it.
Yes.
We can also pull off the one on Monk.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if yeah, what's wrong with that one?
So have a block off your Shirley Mission Parkway?
I have to block off Shirley Mission Parkway. Have you been down there and looked at it, what route that it goes? No.
There's a crosswalk there now.
Well, I know, but then it goes across one way, and if the kids are gonna take it, they've still gotta go across 63rd Terrace to get to Highlands.
Right.
mean,
But there
they
is a
still gotta go
crosswalk
across.
there now.
It goes to the south side of 63rd Terrace. And Highlands is on the north side. So they're still gonna have to go across, and when you've got traffic coming off Shirley Mission Parkway, 8 o'clock in the morning, they try to come down there and beat the light, and then they go 63rd Terrace and go east. So it's a traffic hazard there, there's a lot of problems there. Come down 8 o'clock and I'll bring you coffee.
Okay, bring me a donut, that'll be fun.
Well, is there any more discussion on this item, or?
Well, along with the bike lanes on Lamar, is there any plan then for road improvement there? I went and looked again the other day and walked once, and I don't know if I'd want to be zooming down that hill from 51st down towards Fox Ridge on a bike with some of the conditions in the road too. I think that's got to be taken into consideration.
Yes, it does, and we don't receive these funds till 17, if we're approved? 19, yes.
And we would probably need to look at, regardless of whether we are putting the bike lanes in or not, some additional intermediate sort of treatment along Lamar Avenue. We talked about that internally as well. The bike lane striping probably needs to be redone every 4 years or so. So I think the timing of, we talked about that in connection with, when is Lamar, we certainly wouldn't want to put down bike lanes and then come through and do something else. And I think in our CIP, the recommendations of what needs to be done on that section of Lamar could match up with the striping of bike lanes as well.
And you said those have to be done every 4 years?
Probably
or so?
every 4 years or so.
Do we have any rough idea of what that might, if we have to maintain that?
If we have to do what?
Is there much of an increase there to restripe every 4 years of bike lanes included versus the normal maintenance that we do right now?
I have to look to John at that.
I said in the documentation, it said that the striping should last approximately 8 years.
Yeah, I thought it was longer than that.
And then the maintenance on it would be roughly, I believe, 10 grand from the study that.
If I can clarify a little bit, that's an annual cost. So basically, every time whenever we have to restripe this, you're paying the amount that's in the grant, so 80 to 85,000. But that's over 8 years, so it's 10,000 a year.
Okay.
John can correct me. I think the engineers say that thermoplastic lasts 4 to 5, but in our practice, it's legible and it's good for marking for longer than that.
That's correct. And then when you restripe, you use paint. You don't thermoplastic over thermoplastic because it won't stick to it. So you basically freshen the stripes up with paint, which is considerably cheaper.
Yeah. And so, but just because of how the grant's written, that assumes we put down new thermoplastic on that interval, which we don't necessarily have to do. That's just how they want us to calculate it.
Thanks, Mark. Do we have any more discussion on this? Or are we ready to
City Council instructs staff to amend the current safe routes to the school Phase 2 infrastructure grant application to eliminate both flashing pedestrian signal beacons while maintaining support for the installation of bike lanes running the length of Lamar Avenue to benefit bicyclists, reduce traffic speeds, and increase separation between cars and pedestrians.
Second.
Is there any more discussion on this motion? Please call roll.
Rothrock,
Nay.
Geraghty,
Aye.
Schlosmacher,
Nay.
Appletoft,
Nay.
Kring,
Aye.
Inman,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Gibbs.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, the mayor's report. We have an appointment to the Sustainability Commission. Let's go back to new business for a minute. Councilman Gibbs, do you have something?
Can I just say one?
I'm
quick
sorry,
thing?
I was too quick there.
That's okay. You will be having a new Mission magazine, will be coming out at the end of June. As you know, this being the city's 65th anniversary, we are still continuing this year to bring you excerpts of things that have happened in Mission 65 years ago. So you will still be getting more history. We also are gearing out and trying to gear up the Mission Family Market. So we hope that you'll enjoy this magazine as well.
Thank you, Susan. Okay. Mayor's report, we have an appointment to the Sustainability Commission. So in that, I put before you tonight the name of Steve Mulder, Ward 2, for the appointment to the Sustainability Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2016. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move the city council uphold the appointment of Steve Mulder, Ward 2, to the Sustainability Commission with the term expiring December 31st, 2016.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Please call roll.
Quinn,
Aye.
Rothrock,
Aye.
Kring,
Aye.
Inman,
Aye.
Geraghty,
Aye.
Gibbs,
Aye.
Schlosmacher,
Aye.
Appletoft.
Aye.
Steve is not here tonight. Just two more things on the mayor's report. I'll make it quick. The Northeast Chamber golf tournament was yesterday, and that was a lot of fun. Great time. And I did hear something, I don't know if it's true or not, that the PGA called him late. Is that true, Emily?
That's not true, Mayor.
It's not true?
It was the LPGA.
I heard that she did a great job. We worked in the same group, but we did have a lot of fun. So next year, maybe some more people go. The next thing is the upcoming Mission Family Picnic. That is Saturday, July 9th, Broadmoor Park. And that always is a lot of fun. That is one of our best events. And Crane's doing fireworks after they go down and get them, buy them, they do the whole bit, and bring them back and shoot them off. So, but it's a lot of fun. Great time.
6 p.m.
Oh,
Starts at
thank
6.
you. And that ends the mayor's report. Do we have a city administrator report?
Just very briefly, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo the council on welcoming Dr. Geraghty and your wife, Judy. We're all part of the family here, so we look forward to getting to know both of you better and certainly working with you and whatever we can do to assist in that transition. Please don't hesitate to let us know. We appreciate the presentation from the county, and we'll look forward to kind of working and discussing that more as we move through our budget process and potential impacts that that has for us. It is a busy time of year. The community center is full with 180 camp kids every day. The pool has been overflowing, which is great. It's hot weather that we're having this week. And before we are together for our next council meeting, there are several events that I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of. On June 24th, we'll have our backyard camp out here in Anderson Park, so if you want to stop by, and that's always kind of a fun event. They pitch their tents and watch movies and do all kinds of fun things there. 5 p.m. On June 25th, the Mission Business Association, which is newly formed, is having an art walk. They're sponsoring an art walk and a sidewalk sale.
You may see posters popping up downtown and around the city. That is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. along Johnson Drive. Also, on June 25th, Casey's Auto Repair on the drive will be having their ribbon cutting. So come down for the art walk, and the ribbon cutting is at 11:30. Then on June 28th, we will have a ribbon cutting at Topper's Pizza, which is a new restaurant going into the Mission Crossing development there at Metcalf. That will be at 4:30 on the 28th, and the mayor already mentioned the Mission Summer Family Picnic on July 9th. So a lot happens in the next couple of weeks. The Business Improvement Grant application cycle is now officially open. You all approved the changes to that program, so that is posted on the website. If you know any of our local businesses who might benefit from that, please send them our way. Applications are due by the 30th of June. And just a reminder that we will have a budget work session next week starting at 6 p.m. That's all I have.
Can we have cookies?
Will, absolutely.
And just one more thing, I want to recognize Chief Lopez back there in the back. Always good to have you here, Chief. If there is no other business, I would entertain a motion to.
I make a motion we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.